Happy New Year, everyone. Hope you are all doing well. We are now in 2023, but for this video, I'd like to take some time and look back on 2022, specifically the films that released in 2022. It has been an interesting year with some pretty great films, but I feel like a large majority of them turned out to just be okay or disappointing, but that doesn't mean there haven't been some absolute bangers. I've crafted my own list of my 10 favorite films from 2022, and it was actually pretty difficult making this list because the good movies from this year were insanely good and it became difficult to rearrange and place everything. Before we get into it, obviously I haven't seen every single movie that was released this year, and second, of course this list is entirely my own opinion. You may agree on some choices and disagree on others. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd really like to hear your top 10, top 5, top 3, even just your favorite. Doesn't matter. The point is, I want this to be a positive discussion on our favorite 2022 films, so leave a like, and without further ado, these are my top 10 favorite films of 2022. Terrifier 2 is an absolutely absurd, over-the-top, violence-filled thrill ride of a movie. I went into this thing with absolutely no expectations. At the time I hadn't seen the first film, so I knew absolutely nothing about it. So jumping straight into this one, I was honestly pretty shocked. I have seen the first one since, and I don't really like it, but that's for another time. The violence in this film was extreme and over the top to the point where I found it kind of goofy at times. For a horror film, you want it to have a lasting impression on you. You want that sensation of fear and excitement. This film delivers exactly that. After watching it, it was stuck in my head for days. It truly left an impression like no other. The filmmaking is top notch. The entire film has this kind of grainy aesthetic to it, and the soundtrack kind of gives off an 80s vibe, all coming together to create a film that feels pretty timeless. The makeup effects are incredible, and overall the entire film is a work of art. On a budget of $250,000, the filmmakers managed to craft a movie that rivals a lot of modern horror. To be honest, this film took the number 10 spot from Scream 5 for me. I absolutely love slasher movies, from Jason Voorhees to Michael Myers and Ghostface. These horror villains are absolute icons of the genre, and Art the Clown is very much up there for me right now. The Clown Cafe sequence serves as one of the most memorable scenes I've had the pleasure of watching this year. And that one scene in the bedroom is absolutely disturbing to watch, and I think it's safe to say that it's probably one of the scariest moments I've experienced watching a horror film. Art the Clown is a reign of terror. The violence he dishes out is not quick and clean, but rather he likes to leave you suffering. The disturbing, exaggerated gore is what makes Art the Clown a terrifying force of nature and a memorable one. When I mentioned that the gore was so over the top it's goofy, is because Art the Clown very much leans into the disturbing territory of dark humor. He enjoys what he does and it gives him pleasure. The point is, Art the Clown is one of the scariest horror movie villains I've seen in a long time, and I think if we get more films in this franchise, which seems pretty likely, I could easily see the character becoming a modern day horror icon. Now the film is not perfect, a lot of the acting isn't particularly good in my opinion, but the lead did a pretty great job and I think she helped carry the movie. Overall the plot isn't anything complicated or special, but what really elevates it is the style and the filmmaking. I think the main reason I put it on my list is because it's a horror film that genuinely stuck with me, and the fact that it had such a low budget behind it blew my mind. It ended up making around $12 million throughout its entire box office run, and it truly deserved it. Terrifier 2 is a must-watch for horror fans, and it's one of the most memorable films of the entire year. If you haven't seen it, I implore you to go watch it. It's very good.
Sure you want to talk this out?
Not particularly, no.
Okay.
Now y'all know I love me some well-written characters, and I think good character work is enough to carry a story from start to finish. And the characters in Bullet Train all feel vastly different from one another, as well as being layered characters on top of that. The plot is entirely driven by character motivation, and I think it's pulled off beautifully. A bunch of strangers all stuck on a train with different goals, all coming into conflict with one another. It's a very simple premise, but I think it's very well crafted. Characters like Ladybug, Lemon, Tangerine, and the Prince all have their own motivations, reasons, and they're all engaging in their own ways. When we see characters cross paths from one another, it makes us sit on the edge of our seats wondering what will happen between them. It's not only pulled off by the writing, but by the visual language of the film. The costumes for each character give everyone a particular style, and yet they all fit the same environment around them. The colors, camera work, and choreography all fit together to make a film that feels extremely exaggerated in its nature, almost like a comic book. Seeing the trailer for this movie, I was immediately intrigued, so going to see this opening night in theaters, I was very excited to see what the film had in store for me. The humor, the action, it all blended together extremely well to create a film that's extremely engaging from start to finish. It finds the perfect balance of being funny, but also having real stakes. Characters die, and it creates a real sense of danger throughout the story. The film is entirely sincere, and I think it's clear that director David Leitch put a lot of love and care into the project. The action scenes are great and fun to watch, but when the film slows down and gets into those more intimate moments, you really feel the impact. A lot of that has to do with the pacing as well. The overall story is told in a way that jumps back and forth through flashbacks and now, so we can see what each character is up to at each moment in the story. It's an idea that could have easily been fumbled, but it's just pulled off pretty well. They even used this style of storytelling for an insane joke build-up, and it worked beautifully. On first viewing, what really stuck out to me was the casting. Obviously they used big names like Brad Pitt and Michael Shannon, but I was surprised by how much of the cast I actually knew. Karen Fukuhara from Suicide Squad and The Boys is in the film as an attendant with the snack cart. Sandra Bullock appears briefly. I was constantly thrown off guard by just how many cast members I knew, and it made the film more fun to watch for me. Overall, I think Bullet Train is absolutely amazing. While on the surface you could see it as just a basic action film, I think the gorgeous cinematography, well-rounded characters, great cast, and the absolutely insane over-the-top story make it an absolute must-watch film of the year.
If I had one in the chamber, I would rock this bad boy right now.
Boundaries. We need boundaries.
I am Puss in Boots.
So with the most recent film on my list, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish shattered all expectations I had. I don't even know where to begin talking about it.
I don't trust you.
Trust me.
You gotta trust him. Look at those eyes.
You call that cute?
And with the paws. Am I doing it? Stop. You're gonna give yourself a hernia.
I'm proud of the trend started by Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where all animated films before seemed to follow in Pixar's footsteps, trying to be as detailed and as realistic as possible. But after Spider-Verse, I like to see that a studio like DreamWorks is now moving on to more stylized animation. The look and feel of the film is stunning. The talent and creativity from every single person that worked on the film is shown in full display in each and every single frame of the movie. The Shrek films and Puss in Boots take place in a fairy tale world, and I feel the newer animation style very much reflects that. Rather than fairy tale characters being portrayed in a more realistic light, the film looks more like a moving storybook. The character designs make them look more like the fiction that they come from. With a stylized look, it allows for more vibrancy on screen rather than having colors blend together to create a more realistic, somewhat dull environment. Every single frame pops out at you. The clash of colors and light are such a treat to my eyes. The visuals are overall just incredible. I can't get over it. The one thing I never thought I'd say about this movie is that the fight scenes go so hard. They are visually so cool to watch. The way the camera moves alongside the characters and the lighting makes the entire frame pop. It's kinetic, it's absolutely fun to watch. If we get any sequels or spin-offs, I'd like for very much DreamWorks to keep this art style. It's expressive, colorful, it's just a joy to watch. As far as the story goes, yeah, the film is still really good. Puss in Boots is now down to the last of his 8 lives, so he goes searching for a shooting star that landed many years ago to grant his wish of getting his lives back, cause he believes without his 9 lives, he cannot live up to his own legend. While the story is engaging and fun, I found few scenes to be surprisingly mature. I think the film taking the character and the story extremely seriously is what adds to the film. It's not dark and gritty, it's still very much a lighthearted, fun adventure movie, but the emotional aspect of the film is still very much front and center. Puss in Boots was never one of my favorites in the Shrek movies, but after The Last Wish, I think he might be my favorite character in the entire franchise. The story really centers around Puss and his fears, his mistakes. The overall theme of simply not taking life for granted is a fantastic theme for the movie to tackle. Every character is engaging. I don't feel there's a single wasted character in the movie. The cast is also fantastic. Antonio Banderas, Salma Hayek, Florence Pugh, and John Mulaney absolutely nail their roles. You can tell they were having a blast working on this project. Every part of the film feels made with love from the cast to the visuals and to even the soundtrack. I don't normally talk about music in films because it's not an area I'm confident in talking about, but the Puss in Boots soundtrack is spectacular. There's a few musical numbers and theme songs for some characters, and they all sound incredible, especially the music for the Big Bad Wolf, who also happens to be one of the coolest antagonists in a movie. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is a thrill ride that chooses to wear its themes on its sleeve and pulls no punches in any sense of the word. It is without a doubt a fantastic film, and it deserves to have its spot as one of the best movies of the entire year.
So dumb.
It's so dumb, it's brilliant.
No! It's just dumb.
So now, who doesn't love a good old-fashioned murder mystery? Knives Out was one of my favorite movies the year it came out. It had great casting, the filmmaking was great, the writing was great. It was just, it's a great movie. While I personally felt the mystery was a little obvious, I think Knives Out threw enough at the audience to throw them off the scent a few times. It subverted expectations and managed to deliver an engaging and entertaining experience from start to finish. So when they announced a sequel, I was skeptical. I'm of the mind that if a film works on its own and tells a complete compelling story and makes money, that doesn't mean you should just go ahead and make a sequel. Some stories are better left as standalone projects, so I have to admit, I had no confidence that Glass Onion was even going to touch Knives Out in terms of quality. Well, god damn it, Rian Johnson, you've proved me wrong. I guess lightning can strike twice. I won't spoil the film because it did just release on Netflix not too long ago, but Glass Onion manages to expand and improve upon everything that Knives Out did. The characters are way more interesting, the mystery feels a lot larger in scope, and this one overall feels more confident in what it's trying to do or say. Netflix should have given this film a longer theatrical run because it's absolutely worth seeing in a theater. This one feels way more ambitious than Knives Out, and the fact that they absolutely nailed the film the way they did is incredible. I'm happy seeing Daniel Craig take the stage as the lead in this film. He absolutely carries it, and his performance is so enthusiastic. He really seems to enjoy the character of Benoit Blanc, and to see more of him feels really good. I'm surprised by how much of the film talked about essentially what we were all going through in 2020, and while I feel it does kind of date the film, I did enjoy that aspect of it. The Zoom call in the beginning and the scene where they all get mysterious shots before getting on the boat are extremely memorable scenes for me. The mystery of the film also wasn't as obvious to me as Knives Out. Spoilers for Knives Out if you haven't seen that one, but personally I felt it was easy to guess. While I didn't know the exact plan or layout, I felt it was kind of obvious that Chris Evans was going to be the suspect of the movie, simply because his character was the one that we barely saw of throughout the movie. So right off the bat, I knew it was him. I'm not saying this to sound super smart, but it's just my take on it. Another aspect I love of these films is the music. It really adds to the atmosphere, and the theme in this one I feel fits the more fancier setting and overall vibe of the movie. Another thing I wanted to talk about was Dave Bautista. Going to see him from wrestling to movies has been quite the adventure, and while he was never one of my favorite wrestlers or actors, I can't deny it's amazing to see the evolution of his career. He really wanted to avoid the generic big guy roles that Hollywood tends to use wrestlers in, so to see him in a film like this is very exciting. I just wanted to point that out, and he deserves all the praise he gets because he truly is a talented actor. I also think Rian Johnson gets way too much hate after the release of The Last Jedi, but he's truly a talented director. He directed the best episode of Breaking Bad, and so far both of his mystery films have been absolute bangers. Not much else to say on it. I highly recommend Glass Onion if you have yet to see it. I was blown away with how good it was. So this one was genuinely a huge surprise for me, but Black Panther Wakanda Forever is hands down one of my favorite MCU films. I think we can all agree Phase 4 has been pretty hit or miss for the MCU, mostly miss, but Wakanda Forever feels like a much needed fresh entry. While I don't dislike Phase 4 as much as others, there's definitely problems with it, and a lot of it has to do with the decrease in quality of projects we've been getting. After Infinity War and Endgame, Marvel seems to just want to ride that hype all over again. They're afraid to go back to their roots and just want to have a big Avengers level threat in every single film, not realizing how much it's hurting the overall story. Black Panther Wakanda Forever excels because it takes a step back from the Avengers level threats, the multiverse, and whatever else may come, to focus on character. I know I have an obsession when it comes to character writing, but you can't deny that characters are extremely important and they may make or break a story. Dealing with the real-life loss of Chadwick Boseman, Wakanda Forever had the impossible task of continuing that story. The Black Panther is gone, so how do we move forward? Ryan Coogler decided to make a grounded film about grief. Shuri's journey is the most compelling thing the MCU has put out in a while. How she deals with the loss of her brother and learning to find her way in life is a very powerful story to tackle. It's honestly kind of difficult to put into words. My point is, the film takes its time, slows down to tell a real, emotional story, and it's something that we've needed in the Marvel Universe for a long time. The fan service, the spectacle, the comedy, it all grows stale after a while, and while we may enjoy it in the moment, it doesn't stick with us as much as it should. Wakanda Forever puts emotion first, the character moments, the build up, it all adds to us feeling and getting more compelled into the characters and the world. I wasn't a big fan of the first Black Panther film, but it's because I felt like there was no change. T'Challa was the most compelling character in Captain America Civil War, with his own character arc, but once he got to his own solo film, it felt like there was nothing left for the character. Killmonger worked because he enacted change. His goal and his purpose didn't change throughout the film, but rather he changed those around him. T'Challa eventually decided to allow Wakanda to give resources and other countries and communities help, but to me it felt like the illusion of a character arc, an illusion of change. I feel like Wakanda Forever understood my criticism. Right off the bat, Queen Ramonda's questioned on why Wakanda hasn't been sharing resources with the rest of the world. It's because we know the dangers of the world, what powers like Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. could do. The film heard my cries for an emotional arc and interesting characters, and it gave me that. Everyone feels important in this film. The first film tried to give us a fake death, but I felt like there were no stakes. T'Challa's return felt inevitable. The film heard that and gave us real emotional stakes. Not only does everyone have something to do and Shuri an emotional arc, but this is essentially a war film. The powers of Talokan and Wakanda are at odds with each other, the strongest powers in the world, and for once, we felt that Wakanda was truly in danger, not because we're told, but because we see it. Namor is one of the most compelling characters in the MCU because we completely understand him and can feel for him. Ryan Coogler continues the trend of giving us some of the best Marvel villains in his films because he knows people. His other films have characters with real flaws. He understands that people struggle. Their struggles define who they become, not just for protagonists but for antagonists as well. Namor could have been a cliched, generic, dull world domination villain, but instead Namor has a layer of vulnerability, of sympathy. The people of Talokan are exactly that, they're people. He wants to protect them at all costs. He's willing to sacrifice the few to save the many, whereas Shuri would rather come to a peaceful solution. Their dynamic is one of the most interesting character relationships I've seen in a while in the MCU. The fact that Namor treats Shuri with a level of respect, still treating her as royalty even on his land, is such an interesting aspect for the film to tackle. Shuri's arc reflecting that of T'Challa's in Civil War, even almost saying the exact same line as him, is one of the best pieces of writing the MCU has ever given us. I was skeptical of Shuri taking on the mantle, but because it was handled in such a respectful, sincere way, makes me want to see more of Shuri in the MCU. This level of interesting characters, a compelling story with real stakes, natural humor, and a bit of fan service is exactly what the MCU should be about. For me, Black Panther Wakanda Forever represents the standard that the MCU should follow. We should no longer accept films that don't take risks, that don't bother taking its characters seriously, and we should start pushing for MCU films to be exactly that. Films. To tell real stories, to build up naturally to those grand moments, rather than living in the shadow of what came before. Black Panther Wakanda Forever represents everything I want in a Marvel film, and it stands as one of my favorite movies of the year and of the entire MCU.
Got yourself a deal, gentlemen. Fight's on. Let's turn and burn.
Well, you guys probably already knew this was going to be on the list. I mean, how could it not be? It's Top Gun freaking Maverick. Now, full disclosure, I haven't seen the original Top Gun, and it doesn't really interest me, but to be honest, this movie is true cinema. I love it. Top Gun Maverick feels like a breath of fresh air among modern blockbusters. I've talked a lot about character and how films can focus more on the emotional aspect of the storytelling, and I think Top Gun Maverick is a great example of this. It provides you with all the cool and intense action scenes, but not at the cost of the story. The character writing and storytelling is just as compelling as the dogfights and fight scenes. A return to form for action movies that delivers on the story and the spectacle. From a filmmaking standpoint, I can't even fathom how this film was made, if I'm being honest. The behind the scenes just absolutely blew me away. Showing how they were able to accomplish this and put it together is mesmerizing. I actually got giddy watching these behind the scenes featurettes. Every time the movie comes on, I'm just sucked in right away, and my brain can't process what's real and what isn't, as so much of it is practical. And that's honestly what films should aim to do. Allow for that sense of amazement, to allow for escapism. At the end of the day, that's a big reason for us to go see movies. We want to enter a new world, we want to experience something we haven't before, and we want that journey to feel meaningful. I haven't even talked about the cast yet. They're good. Everyone does a great job. I also think the film does a good job of catching you up to speed if you haven't seen the original like me. There isn't a single moment throughout the film where I'm like, who's that? What's going on? It really has to do with the visual language of the film as well as the dialogue. The scene where Maverick and Penny reunite at the bar is a great example. From just a few lines of dialogue, you can already kind of guess what their relationship had been in the past and where they're at now. It's exposition without just dumping a bunch of information on you. It all sounds natural and it's not shoved in your face. A lot of the film actually plays out this way, specifically in the first act, and I think they did a great job with it, introducing people to the world of Top Gun who might not have experienced it before. The action is also pretty nice. They really elevate it with the sound design, the jets breaking the sound barrier, the way you can really see the G-force in the actors' faces, the intensity of the dogfights. It's overall just really great stuff, and it has to do with them doing a lot of this for real. Off the top of my head, I can't think of a single flaw this film has. It's just good stuff. So yeah, Top Gun Maverick is good. Okay, next movie. Oh my god, what a film. What can I say about Nope that hasn't already been said? Jordan Peele's newest film, and of course his trend continues of interesting and funny characters, absurd symbolism, and an out-of-this-world premise. Literally this time. It also stands to be a film about film. I'd say Nope stands to criticize the current state of Hollywood and the film industry. You remember how for Top Gun I talked a bit about spectacle? Well, Nope uses spectacle as a tool, that idea of not being able to look away, that investment of being so engrossed in the spectacle that films can offer us, those big larger-than-life moments that we can't experience outside of these stories. Nope takes that idea and weaponizes it. That saying, curiosity killed the cat, is a pure representation of this movie. It's all about getting the visual, the shot.
The Oprah shot.
The Oprah shot? Excuse me.
Jordan Peele is so good at taking out-of-the-box ideas and applying it to his stories. The unusual, the absurd, it's what attracts us to his films. Nope is probably his most normal movie, and I'm not saying that as any kind of insult. I just think Nope is the most mainstream of his films. It's a thrill ride, it's funny and suspenseful, but I'd never really say it's scary. It's more fitting of Jaws, where it combines many different genres together to create a huge blockbuster thrill ride. Yet it's fascinating that while being a blockbuster creature feature, Nope also serves as a deconstruction of blockbuster creature features. The Gordy's Home segment of the film is probably the perfect way to describe this movie. How a studio used trained monkeys for television as a form of entertainment, the same way our main characters are using Jean Jacket, the alien, for their gain. I think what's most appealing to me with Nope is that it's a film with layers, but once you strip those layers back, you still have a really fun blockbuster that combines many different tones and genres. Another thing to point out is how visually stunning the film is. There are some kinetic shots with a constantly moving camera, and yet everything still looks so visible in frame, and the nighttime scenes look incredible. The way they film the nighttime stuff during the day with an infrared lens provides some great looking visuals at night, not making it too dark for the viewers and yet still keeping the mystery and dark atmosphere of the scene intact. Jordan Peele is one of those filmmakers that will always stand out amongst current big blockbusters. The way he crafts films that stand out, that have a message, something to say hidden behind the surface, it's something that makes his films a must watch. Nope currently stands as my favorite of Jordan Peele's films and as one of my favorite films of the entire year. If you haven't seen it, give it a chance. I guarantee you won't be disappointed with this one.
I'm vengeance.
You guys already knew this was coming. You should have expected it, although some of you probably thought I'd put it at number 1. The Batman is one of the greatest comic book films ever made, period. The Batman is my favorite fictional character, and this is the first film where I feel that that character has been perfectly realized. Nolan's grounded take felt too far separated from its roots. Snyder's deconstruction of the character was an interesting take, but didn't contain the qualities of the character that I felt were necessary, at least not yet. I know Snyder was working towards building an arc that spanned across multiple films, but it still didn't really fit what I wanted from the character. Matt Reeves' Batman feels like the character I know and love. From the rainy streets of Gotham to his bat suit, this version of the character feels perfect. Of course, right from the beginning, he's not Batman. The film is about his journey of understanding what Batman is, that hope, that inspiration that ignites a change for Gotham. It's the journey of becoming the Batman. I'm going to keep this section short because I'm eventually going to make a video discussing on exactly what it is I love. But for now, if you haven't seen The Batman, you should do so. It's amazing. I love it. Moving on to number 2. Steven Spielberg's loose autobiography. I honestly didn't know what to expect going into this, but man, this film is just incredible. Steven Spielberg is without a doubt one of, if not the best filmmaker of all time. Indiana Jones, E.T., Jaws, Jurassic Park, it's impossible to doubt the man's true talent. His ability to draw us in and bring us into a new world is absolutely incredible. His films are amazing. And The Fabelmans serves as Steven Spielberg's love letter to film. His story of his introduction to film to his eventual start in his career is extremely compelling, and Spielberg manages to tell it in a way that feels so relatable. It's a film that comes straight from the heart, and as a viewer, it really feels like Spielberg is giving us an insight into himself. Artists put parts of themselves into their work, but for this one, Spielberg put all of himself into this, and it's truly a captivating story. I like this new era of Spielberg where it feels like he's working solely on passion projects and not just these big blockbuster movies. The performances are absolutely incredible. The filmmaking feels larger than life in some elements, but it's really the performances that bring it down to reality. Those small, intimate moments are where this film really shines. You're really put into the shoes of Sammy Fabelman, the main character, and it allows us, the audience, to feel so much for the character. His love, his passion shines through the screen, and we feel passionate because he does. I'm never not inspired by Steven Spielberg. He puts so much care into every single detail in every frame, and it just makes the film a joy to watch. I talk a lot about characters and emotional storytelling, and you guys are probably tired of hearing it, but if there's a film that can bring all those things together, it's this one. I can't wait to give this film another watch in the future. I think it truly stands as a masterpiece. It's one of, if not the best film in Spielberg's filmography. Real, sincere, and mesmerizing, The Fabelmans is without a doubt one of the best films of the year. This film is perfect. I know some people say movies can't be perfect, but this one is. On the surface, you have this absurd, wacky, slapstick action film about saving the multiverse, but deep down, it's really a movie that asks, what is the point of life? A question as old as time, and the way the film explores that answer through the relationship between Evelyn and Joy, a mother and daughter relationship, is so absolutely compelling. The point of life is to live, to appreciate the people around us, the moments we share. Jobu Tupaki is talked about as a great evil in the film, and what Joy represents is the idea that nothing matters. When we experience good things, it's a statistical inevitability, and the bad things will always come. Jobu/Joy also represent that idea of change. The way things have changed from back then. People used to be much more civil and life was a lot simpler, but now it just feels like everyone is angry and depressed and screaming at the world constantly. The film is trying to tell us that we can't let these things bring us down, that we have to choose to be kind, to be happy. The message and meaning of this film is honestly so good, I haven't even talked about the other parts of the film yet. I haven't talked about how all the characters are absolutely memorable and brought to life perfectly by the performances of the actors. I haven't talked about the awesome action scenes or even how funny the film is. This looked like such a fun set to be on. The mixture of styles, tones, genres, it takes the name to heart. This film is essentially all films in one. It is everything, everywhere, all at once. Another thing to point out is the multiverse aspect of the movie. The multiverse has been getting so used in pop culture lately, especially with comic book properties, and now Marvel going into their multiverse saga, but Everything Everywhere All at Once manages to present a new take on the multiverse. Rather than having all the different dimensions accessed through a portal and having duplicates of people, it's instead all accessed through the brain. Your actions can dictate a change in your life path, leading to a new life where you gain new experiences and skills. It feels extremely complex at first, but I think it's a great way of making the multiverse feel less like a plot device. The point isn't how the characters travel from one universe to the next, but rather it's showing us the characters and stories change through each universe. It's about seeing the different scenarios and outcomes in Evelyn's life, and her ultimately choosing the life she currently has, and not giving into the temptations of a potentially better life. It's just amazing. I can't gush over this film enough. I could talk about it for hours. I absolutely love it. The style is crazy, over the top, and it's overall one of the best films I've ever seen. Everything Everywhere All at Once is a perfect film. Well, that's it. My top 10 movies of 2022. That took a lot out of me. Now I'm going to go to sleep, knowing I have objectively correct opinions. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.